Okay. As soon as I started the meeting, everyone now is good. I haven't opened the...
One check. Does Matthijs Kok have the admin rights to share presentation? Because otherwise, please provide it to him.
As soon as he joins, and I haven't accepted anyone. So the meeting room now has 18 people.
Yeah.
Shall we put Edwin also as presenter? No, he's just participating. But everyone, we will be able to see the face and the microphone of everyone.
Yeah.
I just need to change then the status from if anyone wants to share something.
Yeah. Then please do that with Matthijs when he's.
I'm already doing that with Matthias. So Matthias is now here. In any case, I'm going to start admitting people. Hi, Matthias. I'm just going to make you a presenter also. Where are you? You are here. Make a presenter. That's it. Shall we start?
Yeah.
And I can say welcome to the meeting, and then I will just give the floor immediately to you, Gertjan and Bart.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, great.
Okay. And Sofia, if you can help me with admitting people in the room while I'm... Thank you so much, everyone, for this Bidirectional Cities event meeting. Welcome. On the side of Polis, we will be managing the technical aspects. The meeting will be conducted by the City of Utrecht. Okay, may I ask for quick rules? Please mute yourself when you are not speaking. If you want to speak, raise your hand. So this is an open meeting, so feel free to write in the chat any questions or raise your hand if you want to speak. The agenda today will have presentations from the City of Stockholm and then the City of Utrecht, plus a presentation from Charge Up Europe on the STF recommendations. So we hope that we have time for a good discussion, but now I will give the floor to our colleagues from the City of Utrecht, Gertjan and Matthias and Bart. And have a nice afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Pedro. Welcome everybody to the third Bidirectional Cities event of Skill. My name is Gertjan Geurts, and together with our Skill team, we have once again put our best effort to create an engaging program on smart charging and bidirectional charging. So also very welcome to our speakers of today, which are Annika Bergendahl from the City of Stockholm. She will talk first. Also Matthijs Kok, my colleague from the City of Utrecht, very welcome. Erwin Fishbone from Charge Up Europe, and as Peter was mentioning already, and Bart van der Rey, also a colleague from Utrecht, he will be speaking last. Also, since this is the City and Bidirectional Cities event, a special welcome to representatives from cities, or people active in cities, also at grid operators. We have seen people subscribing from Oslo, Edinburgh, Almada, Stockholm, Trondheim, Helsinki, Bergen, Gothenburg, Karlsruhe, and I might have missed some as well. So very welcome, but also, of course, very welcome to others, people representative from companies, other organizations, research institutes. Welcome to this Bidirectional Cities event. Now, Pedro already explained a bit of the rules. So Annika would like to give you the floor to speak about the e-mobility strategy of Stockholm. And as mentioned by Pedro, you're very welcome to ask questions in between in the chat. And please raise your hand after the after Annika's ready with her presentation for interactive direct questions. Okay, welcome, Annika.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'll try to arrange so that you can see my slides as well. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, perfect. My name is Annika Bergendahl. I work for the City of Stockholm. I'm here as a stand-in for my colleague Victoria, who had a partly similar presentation on your conference in last year. So for you attended that one, you will see some similar ones, and I've tried to adapt it a little bit to the theme of this meeting. But I should say also to start with that this is not totally focused on bidirectional charging, more on a bit sort of how we work strategically with the electrification in the city of Stockholm and different perspectives that we try to manage in this process. I should try to, why do we work with electrification in Stockholm? We have some targets that push us in this direction. One is that we work with the goal to have an emission-free inner city by 2030, and also to have a 80% reduction of CO2 from transports also in 2030. So that if you look at the national goals that are 70% reduction, and in Stockholm we have said that we want 80% reduction. So it's a very ambitious goal, and just as it's important to say that electrification is one really important part of this. Another one is that we work on to also reduce car traffic, for example. That one should be reduced by 30%. To the same year. So we try to work on different levels with this, but electrification, just to reach these sort of both emission free and the CO2 reduction, then really electrification is the key. So what we work with, if we look at the car fleet, is a rapid growth in charging infrastructure. So 100% of all the garage that are run or owned by Stockholm's parking company and their housing companies, all of these should be equipped with charging infrastructure. That's one part. And then also we have a goal this year to have 2,800 public charging points on street parking, and this is mainly to provide for people who have the street parking as their main parking space. Then we think that they should also be able to have the ability to charge. But of course those ones are also used for taxis or people who are visiting Stockholm. And then we have the goal related to freight transports, and that's also that they should be 100% electrified by 2030. And I should also say that this is for the inner city of Stockholm, so it's not the entire city, but it's a higher goal for the inner city. So those are the sort of the targets, or the leading that's sort of pointing towards where we are going. And I've already mentioned some of these points, but really a little bit of how it works. I know that you will talk later in this session about sort of how to procure charging infrastructure and so on, and that's also why I thought it was good to mention that in Stockholm we have the street parking. Here we work with sort of the city gives permission to CPOs to build charging infrastructure on streets. So it's sort of public owned land, but they got the sort of the right to use this land for 10 years, and then they take the full cost of establishing charging infrastructure for cars. And today we have 2,000 charging points of this type, and I should also mention that mainly this has been interesting in the inner city parts, and now we work a lot with how we can expand it to the larger areas, sort of more outside the inner city, so to say. And here we don't have any really demands on smart infrastructure or bidirectional charging. So I would say that these the ones that was installed the first are now going towards sort of an upgrade, and I think that the new ones are sort of new on the market, but it's more up to the CPOs to decide sort of what technical status they have. And then when it comes to procurement, it's the municipal companies who work with this, and this is then the sort of the Stockholm's parking company is one of them, and also the housing companies, and also our sort of facility management, the one who owns the real estate owned by Stockholm, they also install them themselves. So this is, here we have, depending on different kind of parkings, it's in between 50 and 200% of all the parking spaces should be equipped with charging infrastructure. And here I would say that they have, of course, I wouldn't say that they have specific points related to bidirectional charging. We're not there yet, but they work a lot on smart charging in order to make it sort of feasible with the electricity grid and so on. So we're sort of a little bit on this, but not. We're not. I think that what you will hear from Utrecht is much more sort of state of the art. Okay, so this is actually the map. Oh, sorry, the map of sort of charging infrastructure in Stockholm by ChargeFinder. So as you can see, it's quite well. We have a lot of charging infrastructure. So it's we start before. It has been a lot of discussion on that people can't invest in electric vehicles because there is no charging infrastructure. But I would say that the last year we have sort of turned towards that. It's more a question of we now have a lot of charging infrastructure where we need more cars and more trucks to use these the facilities that are have been installed. And looking on the orange dots, these are the ones that are normal charging, while the other colors, red, blue, and purple, are more sort of fast charging parts. And I should also say that the Stockholm is the inner city part of this, and sort of almost like the city of Stockholm is, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but it's in the middle of this, and then there are other municipalities as well. So how far have we then got? This is a picture of how the car fleet has developed in Stockholm throughout the last years. And the important part, or the interesting parts, I would say, are the ones in the bottom, where you can see sort of how the fleet has evolved so far. So it's almost like a doubling of the fully electric vehicles over the last years. But then, of course, we have a long path to go. So what we actually see is that we need a faster development of the car fleet in order to reach the targets. And the one in the bottom is sort of how far the charging infrastructure has evolved last years as well. So a big rise, I would say, is happening. So as I said, development goes fast, but it's not fast enough to reach the ambitious targets. So that's why we need to continue our work. And I think what Victoria presented last time was actually the sort of our new plan for freight transport. So that is one of the sort of important parts where we try to sort of find new ways to approach these questions in order to take more leaps forward. So what we try to achieve then, what are we working on from now and onwards? One thing that we work a lot with is to share and develop knowledge linked to this. So it can be both sort of internal initiatives, but also to do it together with others, to build expertise and capacity for managing fleet electrification challenges. We work a lot with the sort of process and policy development. So if it was a big push for charging infrastructure in the beginning, I would say that we are now going towards more sort of soft measures to try to find what is actually needed in order to meet the market actors. We try to work very much together with private actors, industry players, to drive innovation and also to streamline the efforts that we make and that they do. And one example in that, this is something that I work a lot with, that is we call it the Electrification Pact, and that's almost 100 actors together who meet twice a year or something to discuss similar challenges or sort of provide the data on where we are at the moment and what we need to do further on. And all of this, you can see, it's a very strong collaboration focus, and we try to also align this with other municipalities and the region of Stockholm as well. And one thing we've also seen in this, and this is, I would say, especially important when we talk about heavy vehicles, for example, or the freight transport, is that we are quite limited in things that we can do to really steer traffic, and the information we have is quite limited. So we actually work very much in innovation projects and so forth to reach our targets. It's not really if we're looking at car traffic, for example, I would say that we have more elaborated measures to actually steer traffic, while here we very much need to work together with the actors. So we work with proactive forecasting in order to sort of take in consideration of what we need to be able to provide for the future. We try to also support solutions for flexible charging solutions, because we think that, I mean, we do not work with this ourselves, but we try to, we think that the freight transport should charge on depots and so on, and we try to sort of find ways together with them in order to make that possible. And as I said, we have had a really fast infrastructure expansion, and also when it comes to heavy vehicles, we also try to find where these vehicles are and see how we can make sure that they are provided with charging possibilities there. We don't really want to create all new places where they should stay, then rather to find ways to provide electrification or like some grid capacity in those places. I think I mentioned some of this. Yeah, I mean, we work with the policy and planning. This is something that are more sort of, the planning is in our hands, I would say. So it's very much a question of when we do long-term planning, we need to take into consideration what this actually what changes this make. Sort of, is it changes in land use, or is it changes in how we procure, for example, and so forth. I just came from a meeting related to policy, because we also we know now more and more, it's like we have, from the city perspective, we have more ambitious goals than, for example, the state or the European Union. So how can we sort of get more help in order to reach our goals? We at least think about that quite a lot. And then, of course, we have also regulations to work with as well. So, for example, we work a lot with off-peak deliveries and how we can enable that more. And also, we are working on implementing the first zero-emission zone in Sweden at the moment. We thought that it would be implemented now by New Year's Eve last year, but we have had some obstacles in that, but our hope is that it will be during this year. Sorry. So as I mentioned, we think that, of course, the fleet really is that is the one we need to really work with at the moment. But in order to do that, we think that all these other aspects of hubs and co-loading and policy and regulation, all of this, we try to work with this all from a systematic perspective in order to have them all sort of connected in our work. I think that was all I had on my plan to mention, but I'm open for questions from the audience. I can quit this. Here you have my contact details if you're interested to know more.
Thank you, Annika, for this interesting presentation. Yeah, would like to give the floor first to the audience. Are there any people who want to ask a question on this to Annika?
There's already one in the chat from
yeah.
Nicholas van der Steen. I don't know, Nicholas, if you want to maybe say it and maybe present yourself a bit, or we can just go through the chat. The question is, what type of chargers are you planning to install for trucks N2 and N3 already? Megawatt charging or slower depot charging? And the example in Belgium the assumption is 90% of the charging will be depot and will be slower charging. But Nicholas, let me know if you want to step in and maybe say some words.
Yes, so hello everyone. I'm a researcher from the Vrije Universiteit Brussels, so the Free University of Brussels. We're doing also projects on charging and zero emission policy advice, and a part of that is the planning ahead for the charging for e-trucks. That's one part of it. So I was curious, as you mentioned, the future energy demand. I was wondering what your approach is there.
Yeah. I would say that this is a bit hard question because I would say probably in the city of Stockholm, we will not, or by the city of Stockholm, we will probably not have this kind of charging at all. I mean, it could be relevant for some of the depots, but then it's sort of up to them to install that. I know that we have last week, I think, the first MCS charger was installed in the south, in the region of Stockholm, but not in the city of Stockholm.
Okay.
So I think these kind of solutions are considered for more sort of long distance transports, and so there are a couple of pilots of that in along the way to Stockholm. But then I would say that within the municipal boundaries, we don't think that this is something that should happen outside the inner part of the region, so to say. So probably my guess would be that it's not the MCS charging that will be the most common in Stockholm, but perhaps on the way. I mean, since Sweden is a large country, it's probably a couple of places on the way from the south of Sweden to Stockholm.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Are there any other questions from the audience?
Yes, Shivani.
Yes. Hi. I just wanted to ask, when it comes to the collaboration between the city and the charge point operators to establish the infrastructure, it's quite a competitive market. And at this point, specifically when it comes to not bidirectional, but AC and DC chargers, there's so many companies making essentially what seems like the same product. So when it comes to actually getting these permissions, are there any differentiating factors that differentiate one company to other, or anything that gives a company an edge?
May I ask you first to present yourself? Sorry, Annika, to interrupt. Anyone that asks a question, may I ask to say with your name and where you come from, because Shivani, we don't know.
Oh, sorry. My name is Shivani. I come from an executive search firm called Venom Carter, where I work specifically in the EV charging space, and specifically within Europe and emerging markets. So, yeah.
Thank you. I would say that we work with the sort of first come, first serve principle. The city of Stockholm made a couple of years ago something we call the sort of charging map, where companies can make reservations of places where they want to establish charging infrastructure, and then we have limitations for that. One company can't make reservations of more than 20 or 30 points at the same time. So that's also a limitation, so that one don't make reservations of all places, so that it's still available for other ones as well. So we have like, I would say, between 10 and 15 different charging operators in Stockholm. And then as a result of that, we have other problems with the design of them, because it's of course we want them to look a bit similar, although they're all sort of different companies that provide them. So what we've done then is that we have specific design guidelines that they all actors need to adhere to. But it's a little bit, I know that some cities work with a more sort of bidding processes, but in our case it's more that the ones who reserve the spot first is the first who got to. And it can be both in a way that it's a place where we've said that this is something we think is suitable for charging infrastructure, or it can be a place that they see themselves and they want us to then consider as a good parking space for charging infrastructure.
Thank you, Annika.
We have one hand raised and one in chat. Let's start with the hand raised. Steen.
Yeah, thank you. Steen Olsen from Sustain Solutions. We are working on the project, Super Smart Charging Hub project. So our interest is, of course, how have you been working on sort of overcoming grid constraints or supply from the grid operator? Has that been taken into the account when pointing out the different locations for charging, and has it been solved by using extra batteries or load balancing, or that's
Perfect, thank you. We haven't in our first consideration, we have not taken that into consideration because it's mainly AC charging, so then it hasn't been so much of a problem. But then we are in close contact also with the grid owner that we need, I mean, to be more proactive. So in some places, for example, we made together with them, pointed out suitable places, and it could be both from a sort of grid constraint perspective, but it could also be that, for example, that they plan to do something on that street, for example, and then we can push a bit extra for establishing charging infrastructure at the same time. So we try to both make it efficient from the sort of that the street shouldn't be open 2 times in a row. But when it comes to grid constraints, when we had a talk about this beforehand, it's I understood that one thing in Utrecht has been really that you have a lot of grid constraints, that it's been pushing for this with bidirectional charging. I wouldn't say it's this, perhaps not the same problem in Stockholm, but it's definitely one of the main challenges for going faster in this direction, especially when it comes to faster chargers. So far, it's very much that the grid owner have made sort of adaptations to the grid, for example, flexibility markets and these kind of solutions in order to provide for more customers, although it's not really, the capacity isn't raised. We think that we will have more capacity first in like 2031 or something. So we know that we are sort of pushing the limit on how much charging infrastructure we can have without the smarter solutions for this.
Thank you.
There's one in the chat. Shall we start with the chat first, Gertjan, and then maybe Jim?
Perfect. Yeah, Ursula.
So a question from
Ursula, yeah.
from the audience. Are there any results or observations regarding smart charging implemented at vehicle to home and its estimated effects on the city's green transition? I don't think you have, yeah.
No, we don't have those kind of, no.
Yeah, okay, clear. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I have some questions.
Yeah, I've
Yep.
had my hand up. Jim Hunt
Okay.
from V2G Limited in the United Kingdom. You're sort of speaking my language, Annika. V2X and flexibility. I was wondering what you see. I mean, it sounds like you're interested in V2X in Sweden, but what do you see as the barriers to rolling it out swiftly or indeed at all in Sweden? Over.
I don't think I have the full response to that. I think often when I got the questions related to V2X, I said that I'm not sure, at least in the Swedish context, I think it's not the cities that are the ones who should sort of push for this the most. It's more like the grid owner or the companies providing for this, or the ones developing new vehicles. So I think that we are a bit more sort of reluctant to it and to see what, because we are not the one, for us it doesn't make such a big change. It's not sort of how we reach our targets. I think there are other ones that are more in need of this, and from a city perspective, it's sometimes hard to know what kind of problems this will solve. I mean, it's the problems I would say is more related to the grid, electricity, the capacity, than perhaps the challenges that we are more focused on. But then, of course, like with anything, the other part of the question, sort of what will be needed. I think that it's like in all of this, I think there are many people or different kind of actors who need to come together and really work from different perspectives on how you can, what are the barriers and what are the possible solutions to go forward. And my guess is that the examples you have from the scale projects is actually providing some example of how that can be done in practice.
I see that
Thanks for
Annika's
the
response.
comprehensive answer. Lots of silos still, in my humble opinion, but there we go. That's a worldwide problem, not just a UK problem. Over. Thanks very much.
Jim, specifically regarding Sweden, it's interesting to check out the project in Gothenburg with Polestar, also a member of the Scale project, and the city of Gothenburg. We're doing also quite a larger V2X project. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that too. Over.
Yeah. Matthias, did you raise your hands?
Yeah. I think Annika's response created triggered a response also from Matthias when she said cities should not leave this.
Yeah, maybe I can just explain it in my presentation, so never mind.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Now I was wondering, Annika, regarding grid constraints, you're mentioning smart charging it's not an obligation or something, but you were also mentioning the newer charge points do have the capability of charging smart. How does that relate to each other? Is it?
No, I would say that my guess would be that they like smart charging. I would say that in our case, it's probably like load balancing and these kind of things. And I would say that often they do that for themselves as well in order not to have the sort of, I don't know what the English word is, but service, like the contract you have for capacity, for example, to not have to pay too much for that. So then they do this, they install this themselves.
I understand. Now, what I found interesting in our second Bidirectional Cities event, so the event before this one, was Sture from Oslo. We're mentioning so in Oslo, they don't have a big capacity problem yet as well, but they expect to have the capacity problem arising when the ferries are electrified more and more. Sture, you are in the call. I saw. Are you in the call? No. I see. So
sorry. Yes, I'm here.
So that was a very interesting point you made, then, Stuart. So I was wondering if that might be the case in Stockholm, since you also have a lot of water and transport, and you have a great startup with Candela, I think. So, yeah, can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yes, I'm thinking now of the sort of the scenarios for that the grid company is doing. I think that what they see in the prognosis of energy use in Stockholm, it will be the transport sector then, and then of course both when it comes to rolling vehicles and boats, and then it's the data halls. These are the big sort of sectors that will require more electricity in Stockholm. But I'm not sure actually how the division is between transports on road and ferries. But of course, in some places, I would say that will definitely probably be a problem. But I think that's but it's always coming back, so it's quite sort of specific to a certain area, I would say. So in some places, for sure, I think that could be a challenge.
Okay. So, Sture, was I correct? Was I correct in this introduction?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So it's a little bit like Stockholm, not yet a problem, but in the future it will be a deficit in the capacity. So we are looking into the capacity market and stuff like that. But it's coming, I guess, but not yet. Yeah.
No, no. And I thought you were mentioning that also because of that, it's important to charge the EVs, the cars and the vans also smarter to get some more capacity also for the boats, etc. Is that correct? So
Yeah, definitely for us at least.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and I would say, and that's the same. I mean, to that point, I think we're really similar in Stockholm as well. That when we have our strategy for what kind of charging we will want to provide for, it's really sort of low capacity charging in the nights, for example. So for sure, from that perspective, we really sort of take the grid into consideration in what our strategy looks like.
Okay, good. Thank you. I think we go further to Matthijs, unless there's one big last question for Annika. No, I don't think so. Okay, and otherwise you can always send us an email or send Annika an email with your questions, so feel free.
Yes.
Matthijs, welcome to talk.
Yes, thank you. Do you see the presentation?
Yeah.
Perfect. We, you and me, have been presenting in the first bidirectional city meeting in October, I guess it was. At the time, we already had some of the subjects I will do today. I'm Matthijs Kok. I work for the city of Utrecht, and I am responsible for the development of charging infrastructure in Utrecht and the smart charging and bidirectional charging within that. During the last bidirectional cities event, there was some questions about some subjects I'm going to talk about today. And we had 3 specific subjects we wanted to have some more insights in, and I will try to talk about them in 15 minutes. So it will be challenging, but it's about grid conscious charging or smart charging, data-driven rollout, and operational models for V2G charging infrastructure. Something just also already mentioned by Annika. We will have some more insights in that. They don't really relate to each other a lot, these different subjects, but anyhow, we will just go through them. So first, grid conscious charging. We've been working on bidirectional charging for 10 years already in Utrecht, starting in a decade, starting in 2014. This is the roadmap you see here. And sort of we're now starting to implement that. So that's a long development path we have been working on. But smart charging, we've been working on in a parallel path, both in the same time. So we have already implemented a smart charging on most of our public charge infrastructure, which is 2,000 public charges. 4,000 charge points available in Utrecht, this is really necessary in Utrecht because we have a lot of grid congestion. I heard they don't have that in Sweden. That's good for them, maybe in the future. And I do not fully agree that it's not important to work on this as a city, as Annika just sort of said, because if you want to make your goals on climate neutrality and electrifying your city, so to say, you will need the grid and capacity in the grid. So if you do not make it smart, you will be really hard to make your climate ambitions for your city. That's what we notice now, because we have a lot of grid congestion in Utrecht. It's on the TSO level, so it's high power grids that don't have capacity. It's in a high power grid field outside of the city. It's not a current problem, but they forecast they will have a shortage of 250 megawatts in 2030. Which is quite a lot, because the total capacity of this high power grid station is approximately 1,200 megawatts. So they are 250 megawatts short in peak times for 500 hours per year in 2030. And that is why they stopped giving out new grid connections for high power grids. So we cannot connect new fast chargers now in Utrecht, for instance, which is already a problem for our transition to electric mobility. And we are looking into a situation maybe next year or the year after that we also cannot connect AC chargers anymore. So we are really working on systems of grid conscious charging as one of the solutions for congestion management. In addition to a lot of other solutions, we are also working on like stationary batteries, grid friendly building, grid friendly, all different, even gas powered generators that will put into the grid to solve grid congestion problems. 10 or 11 different measures, but one of them is grid conscious charging. And that is an important measure because right now we have approximately 10,000 electric cars in Utrecht, but in 2030 that will be approximately 30,000. And right now our public chargers in peak times have 16 megawatts of peak load on the grid in the province of this 250 megawatts of grid congestion. So 16, but in 2030 that will be approximately 60 to 80 megawatts. So about 1/5 of the problem or 1/3 of the problem resolving in grid congestion in 2030 is due to public chargers. So if we can stop charging these chargers during peak hours, we already solve 60 to 80 megawatts of the problem of 250 megawatts. And that is just one part of the problem from charging, because this is just the AC public chargers that do these 60 to 80 megawatts. Here you see all the charging network we foresee for 2030, which is all the yellow dots are the public chargers. But in addition, we have approximately 30,000 private charge points in garages and at people's home, but also for logistics. It's all the purple and the blue you see. So 300 depot chargers. The MCS chargers, we expect about 60, mainly in this area, which is also 60 times a megawatt is 60 megawatts extra of demand on the grid. So if we foresee this for 2030, in addition to all the congestion problems we already are facing now, smart charging is a must-have. And that's why we've been working on this for 10 years. So smart charging, we've been doing a lot of pilots, a lot of research, a lot of implementation. Since 2 years ago, the grid connection sort of hit the fan. We've been also working really hard on upscaling this and really implementing it I call it a dynamic capacity contracts. So it's the previous speakers have been talking about flexibility markets, but we are working on DSO CPO contracts, limiting the CPO's grid connection power capacity during peak hours. And we are so they get a new grid connection contract saying they outside of peak hours they can have full capacity, which is 70 kilowatts per connection per charger, charge pole as well, 2 sockets. But during peak hours we are going to, and it's a traffic light strategy. So in the first phase we are going to have 50% peak reduction in the first phase. That is until we have 250 hours of congestion during a year, which is mainly in winter, and then they, instead of 70 kilowatts, they just get 2 kilowatts per connection, and the end user gets an opt-out. So if they want to charge fully, they can push a button and they get full power. But as a standard, they get smart charging, which in the end means pretty low power during peak hour in winter days, approximately 40 to 60 winter days a year. For 4 to 6 hours, they get low power. Then if the congestion worsens and we have 250 hours per year, we even go to a further peak reduction, which means 80% peak reduction. It's 1 kilowatt per connection, which means during the evening hours, the peak hours, you don't get any power for charging, only during the night, but you can still push an opt-out. That's the orange phase. We expect that to need that in approximately 2027, 2028. And then there is a red phase. That is when we really have to avoid power outages. And then you just get an idle connection. So you can plug in, start your session, but you won't get any power during peak hours. So it's fully paused in the evening hours in the winters, and you also don't have the opt-out option. So then we can really reduce the 60 to 80 megawatts to a full zero in if we really need it to avoid power outage. So it's all hands on deck. We call it in the Netherlands. We have been. It's really strong. Smart charging solutions we are now working on. Maybe any questions on this? I see one question.
Yeah, I have a question. Sten Olsen, Sustained Solutions. Seems to be really nice to have that tool in the toolbox to just have an overall reduction, but is it only sort of the public charging points operated? What about the private households? There was, as I remember, you said 30,000 of them. You can probably operate them by themselves, but is there an incentive that they should sort of enroll themselves in a system where they can easily adapt the peak reduction and follow these traffic light strategy?
Yeah, I understand.
By themselves in the private homes.
Yeah, so this is an agreement or a contract between the DSO and the CPO, all the CPOs that are active in our province behind this high power grid. In this high power grid where we have this problem, it's 7 CPOs that are active that will get this contract, and it's a voluntary contract. So they will also, the DSO will also have to pay the CPO to accept this. But for the private homes, the DSOs are working on a dynamic capacity pricing. So the difference between high power and low power grid payment will be will be approximately 25 cents, the delta between between peak hours and off-peak hours. So that's also a pretty big incentive for households to switch to smart charging, but that will be implemented in this new tariff structure, which will ask for new regulations, and that will be that takes about 2 to 3 years to implement that. It will be 2027, 28 when these new tariffs will be active. But then they are obliged to all households to choose one of those new tariffs.
Okay, meaning that you can either, if you can choose 2 ways. Either you have a CPO to operate your private charger, or you could just follow the rule of economy by being hit by new tariffs at home. So you're motivated no matter what.
Yeah, and there's one other way. The DSO is also trying to make contracts or agreements with some CPOs that do home charging, and also paying them to do flexible services from their home, the home chargers, and then they give this further to the end user, to their customers, so to say. So that's a third way that is also implemented now in different regions in the Netherlands.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, but
Any other questions?
Due to the time, it's good to continue, and I would like to ask the audience to keep their questions to for after the presentation. Yeah.
No problem. Then database rollout. So as I explained, we have currently 2,000 public chargers in Utrecht. In 2019, when we implemented the data-driven rollout, we had about 500. And at the time, if you wanted to have a new a charger, or if you bought an electric car, you go to the website of the municipality and you could demand for a charger. So it was a demand-driven system, and that is still a system that is pretty common in the Netherlands. But then we said, well, we have a covering network, so we know where the chargers are most used. That's what you see in the picture. The bigger the dot, the higher the occupation of the charger. So then you know here it's still okay, and here is where you need new chargers because the chargers are mostly occupied. So then we said we stop with the demand-driven rollout and we go to a data-driven rollout, and we developed a system of KPIs, of indicators for when to put new chargers in, and that was sort of a new network approach for rolling out our charging. And what we said is we always want a free socket to be available on the neighborhood level. So these are the neighborhoods you see here on the right picture. And in each of these neighborhoods, we always want a charge point available so that we can guarantee if you buy an electric car, you can charge your car at every time. So what we said is, based on the amount of charge point that is already installed in a neighborhood, we are going to measure the occupation of these chargers and set this as a KPI. And the result is that there's always a free socket available in this neighborhood. So it's 3 or 4 sockets. So this is a peak hour occupation. So for instance, if between 8 and 9 o'clock on Tuesday night, the occupation is in a neighborhood with 6 chargers, 6 charge points is 50%. It's still okay. If the occupation becomes 60%, then they need to put a new charger in. And I'm saying they need to put, that's the operator. So we have a performance contract with our CPO, the charge point operator, who's putting new chargers in. And if they do not meet these KPIs, they get a fine from us. So we give them all the occupation data from the existing chargers in the neighborhood. And based on those data of the occupation of the charger, they forecast whenever they think they are going to they forecast when they think they need put a new charger in every neighborhood, and whenever they see that the occupation is going so high, they start developing a new charger so that the charger is just in time in the location. And the result for us is that we can guarantee our citizens they always can charge their car and thus can freely choose to buy an electric car, and that is in the end what we want. This is what I already said. So we have different KPIs in a performance contract with our operator, and they get a fine if they don't meet the occupation rate, but also on uptime and malfunction. And this really helps us to meet our goals. And this is one advantage in a concession model we have, which is different from the open market model we've seen in Stockholm. And if you want to learn more about this, I already previously made an online course and you can click this link if we send the presentation afterwards, and you can learn more on this. Then, as Annika already mentioned, we were also going to explain a little bit more on the different market models for operating public charging infrastructure. So we sort of have 3 different models in the Netherlands, but it's pretty general, I guess. We have a procurement model. Then you just buy the chargers and put them on street and operate them yourself, or have a service level agreement with somebody who operates them for them. So you have a lot of influence on what the chargers look like, what tariffs you have, etc. But you also have to do all the investments yourself. In Utrecht, for most chargers, we have the concession model. In that case, you have a tender and you select one party based on requirements who's going to develop these chargers, and we combine that with the performance contract, so you can also steer on the performances delivered by the operator. And one advantage is also you can also ask for a concession fee. So for every kilowatt hour that is sold on the public charger in Utrecht, the city earns 4 cents, and that is also what pays for all the costs we make for selecting locations, contract management, etc. So it's also a way to also finance the cost you make as a public service. And the final contract is the open market model. Well, that is what was just described for Stockholm. So you say you have sort of a level playing field. Everybody, every operator can put charges in based on some basic rules on what they look like. But for instance, you have little influence on tariffs, and we see this system in the Netherlands as well. But in those cases, the charging tariffs are almost twice as high as in cities which have a concession model or a procurement model. So that's really a big disadvantage of this. And also you have limited influence in where and how many chargers are developed within this model. But we do use it in one case, and that is we have chargers for shared cars, and that is the chargers that are also, the shared cars are also used for bidirectional charging. So it's the neighborhood V2G cars that are shared cars. So they need to have their own charger. And because we already had the concession contract, it was a little bit difficult for us to say to allow also another operator to operate their own chargers next to the shared cars. But to make the V2G work, they had to own the charger and the electricity contract on this location. So we implemented the system where we say all operators of shared cars can operate their own charger in addition to the concession. So it's sort of an open market model for shared car companies who want to have their own charger. And that's currently one operator using that, who is also operating the shared car, the V2G cars. And this really helps us, for this could also be a system in other cities too, because it has some benefits for developing V2G charging in your city. So I think this is it. We've been talking about grid conscious charging, which is really necessary for us. It really solves some of the problems we have with grid congestion. So start early, because when it hits you and you're going to start then with smart charging and bidirectional charging, you're a little bit late. A proactive data-driven rollout really helps us to have a covering networks and network that serves our citizens with charging guarantee, so to say, and you have different operational models. Choose one appropriate model for your city, and if you're looking at V2G charging, the open market model could really help you to develop this further. So that's it. Any more questions? Pedro.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
So recently, and I don't know if Annika is still here, but we have seen cities here. So this is for Matthias and anyone else who wants to respond. We have, as part of the bubble in Brussels, we have been exchanging with the Commission and also other stakeholders like ASEA and OEM manufacturers. And apparently now the push from ASEA is that says that we haven't been seeing so much adoption of electric vehicles because of the lack of charging. So they say that we are not selling as much as we wanted because there's not enough chargers and people still have a lot of range anxiety. But what I see here is that the cities like Utrecht and Stockholm, they are already providing the charging infrastructure. So I have the impression that this is not entirely true. I would say the lack of affordable models is probably a bigger issue than the lack of charging, especially when you look at what's already in place. But I also wanted to hear from you. Do people complain that there's lack of charging? Because looking at the map, from my point of view, I think no.
No, since we implemented this data-driven rollout system, we don't get any complaints about the lack of charging. We do get a lot of complaints from people who don't have an electric car, that they say there's too many of these chargers and I cannot park my car there because we reserve the location for electric cars only.
Oh,
so no, that's not an issue. I think it's mainly the high price of the cars that's a limiting factor. Yeah, I think that no, it's not the charging infrastructure in the Netherlands for sure. It's not.
Thank you. Good points also to bring to the meetings with the Commission and the stakeholders, because we've seen that with the Renault 5, it's becoming quite popular with the new electric, and it's an affordable vehicle. It's small size, so yeah. I think the problem of the chicken and the egg, and if you consider the chicken, the cars, and the egg, the chargers, I think the problem now relies more with the chicken than with the egg. But thanks for confirming and thanks for your feedback.
Yeah, we are also really happy with the Renault 5 because it V2G, it has V2G capabilities. So 500 of these cars are coming to Utrecht this year, and also from a grid congestion perspective, 500 cars means 11 kilowatts per car if they are connected to the grid. It's 5 megawatts of flexible capacity available just out of nowhere coming to our city with our problem of having 250 megawatts to solve by 2030. But every little bit helps to solve this problem. So we are really happy, and also in the discussions with the grid operator, we are also already talking about how the operator will pay the DSO will pay the operator of these shared cars for this service. So it's really interesting times, I think.
There is a question from Nicholas,
Sure.
and thanks, Matthias. Were these their charging stations removed if use was very low on certain locations, or is their use on all locations? Feel free to expand, Nicholas.
Yeah, it relates a bit to the question, but my previous question, but it was answered by Gert-Jan. I was wondering, as I understood it, you first did a coverage approach, so trying to give every neighborhood or every street a charging station, and then switched to a user request and then to demand, which is a very, very interesting approach and a good one, I think. But I was curious then if you now have a view on the demand. Are there certain CPOs that say, well, we install the charging station on a location where there's no use?
No, that usually happens in a demand-driven approach where people apply for a charger, because then you have only one user, and one user is usually not enough to make a business case for a charger. And since we implemented the data-driven rollout, we see that the usage of the charger actually gone up, because it's more of a scientific approach. You know where you put the charger, there is demand because you measure it, and it's not based on somebody applying for a charger and maybe the only one in the whole neighborhood. So we see that the usage of the chargers in Utrecht, which has been working with this data-driven replacement system already for 5 years now, the usage of the charger is higher than in other cities and locations. So also the CPO is really happy with the system, because their investments, the return on their investment is better.
Just a concern I have is a bit related to equity. If you would not install chargers on locations where there is no demand yet, but might be in the future, and you only install them where there is now demand happening, but that's maybe less the case in Utrecht, as you did the coverage approach first, and then
you need to have a covering network. So when we started this system, we also said every neighborhood where there's not a charger yet, we are going to put one. And it's sort of to measure. And we didn't know if that was going to be used, but you need to measure if otherwise you might miss some.
Okay, thank you for the nice explanation.
Right. If I may add, Nicholas and Matthijs, just because of the time, Gertie and I know, but just to say very briefly that me and Sofia, we are working at Polis to try to create a fact sheet on AFIR implementation that will support our member cities and regions. And one of the things that we want to bring to the discussion and is to share good practices on these kind of models, to expand predictive models. And I know VUB and Nicholas, you're working on that. Matthijs, you're working on that in Utrecht. We also have the city of Turku as part of the usership project. So we are probably going to reach out to you afterwards in the future, somewhere in the future, to maybe give us a little bit more explanation that we can actually use this example. 2 examples on how to support cities that, first, we already said it was really important. Start with the basics, but after you reach a certain basics, you need to go a little bit more, let's say, scientific. This is going to be very useful for cities that are just starting, so they don't try to reinvent the wheel, and they learn from already existing tools and resources.
Great point, Pedro. Yeah, and great you're doing that. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Due to the time, I would like to invite Aaron Fishbone from Charge Up Europe to the stage. Aaron, are you there?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're on your way to Zagreb, we know.
Yes, that's right. I'm in a village like 60 kilometers outside of Zagreb, Croatia right now. I pulled over to get this. Forgot that there was a toll system here, so I had to pay the toll to get off the highway. But
okay. Good. Thanks. Yeah, you're going to update us on the Sustainable Transport Forum Handbook for procurement and tenders of EV charging infrastructure, to include also smart charging. And please take the floor. And but a short note: Bart van der Rey, colleague from Utrecht, will follow up with the V2G specifications annex we're proposing to this handbook. So this way that relates to each other.
Perfect.
Aaron. Yeah.
I will be brief. So I think, I'm not completely familiar with all the work of the group, so I apologize for parts that are repetitive to what's been said. This document is a creation of, the Sustainable Transport Forum, which is this expert advisory group to DG Move. And the purpose of it was to in the last time that there was public tendering guidelines for EV charging, so this is the concession model that the previous speaker was talking about, was in 2020. And this is a lot has happened in the market and in the regulatory environment around electric vehicles and EV charging. And since then, and so the STF wanted to put out a new document that could be a resource guide for public authorities at all levels, whether national ministries, highway authorities, or municipal officials, all across Europe, in order to facilitate their ability to deploy public tenders to deploy public tenders for public recharging services. And also really across Europe, because I mean, as wonderful as the presentation we just heard about Utrecht was and your experience living there, I am in Croatia, which has fewer than 10,000 electric vehicles, less than 0.5% of the entire vehicle fleet is electric. It is it's far sparser here, and I think a very different environment, and frankly, also a very, very different discussion with public authorities around their, let's say, willingness to roll out charging or support the system overall, even from with the side of private investment. So the purpose of this guide was to support public authorities throughout Europe as they look to deploy public charging and allocate sites for it. So this guideline was to help them, let's say, meet the minimum standards in order to be compliant with the alternative fuels infrastructure regulation, and to advance it, what it requires, and also to centralize other, let's say, requirements for the Renewable Energy Directive as well. So maybe if you could go forward, please, and I will just make a few points that are even not so connected to the slides individually, and I wrote them down briefly. I think the first thing was as I said, the purpose of the book was to centralize. So this is the rough structure of the guide. It's not yet publicly available. We are just waiting for the commission to publish it, which any day now, Pedro will know the moment it happens and can share it with you. But here is the main segments of it. And part 4, technical tender requirements, is maybe most interesting to you and where the annex would come in, because it is about what are the specific technical requirements that are called for in AFIR. I think most relevant here is, in addition to let's say, the general where chargers should be, it is the idea that all chargers as of this point, as of April 2024, should be smart charging capable and digitally connected, which are naturally precursors and really basic technological standards for any ability to do vehicle to grid or anything bidirectionally. So this would provide just the minimum foundation for the discussion that you're having on V2X. So moving forward, please. One of the main lessons learned in the context of the discussion was the importance of electric vehicle charging brings together transport and energy like never before. And these are communities that do not have a history of talking to each other. They never really needed to. And now we need to be in constant conversation. And I should also emphasize that this document is about public charging, not so much private charging, where that's still entirely relevant. And so many places tender expectations or tender locations are done or selected without any consideration to the available power, the available capacity. Where does that location sit on on a network operator's future investment plans? What are the costs and how long will it take in order to, let's say, to connect the proper power to that location, and permits and whatnot. And so the really critical is for whoever is the tendering authority at any level of government, whether it's in an urban environment or a highway, to be in touch with the public, with the network operator as soon as possible, to align expectations, align planning, and to try to move forward together. And I think, for the purpose of this guide, electric vehicles and EV charging is still primarily for transportation purposes. The vehicle is still a mode of transport for people, and that is the primary consideration. But additionally, if the network operator understands the flexibility potential there, the ways in which that might decrease or delay their need to make investments in order to supply power, but not need to make investments at that location so quickly, that might actually be a very appealing feature for them. But again, as this document applies across Europe, you can really see lots of variation between the enthusiasm or interest in network operators in these topics. What you call flexibility, they might call complexity somewhere else, and for them is an additional cost and a concern and a risk factor. And so really, but it's important to have this conversation and make them aware. So talking as early as possible is critical to that. Also, it's critically important to talk to CPOs and OEMs as early as possible as well, to understand what are their projections for the vehicle uptake in that region, for vehicle sales projections in that region, and I guess in your case, for vehicles that are bidirectionally capable in that market, so that the deployment of charging technology keeps up and it stays a little ahead of the market, but maybe it doesn't go too far ahead that it is not really profitable for CPOs and they lose interest. And likewise, what are CPOs' own investment plans to keep into mind as well, not just the locations and the power capacity, but also the type of infrastructure. I work for a company that is a CPO, and we do not have much, if any, bidirectionally capable charging because there is no need for it or demand for it in our market. And frankly, there's not even a product. There's from the perspective of the energy regulators, it's not even a product that we could sell that would allow for flexibility or for, let's say, changing of tariffs at this moment. So the regulatory environment is not set up for it, and they need to be in the discussion as well. There was a further discussion about the need to discuss with public authorities about land use considerations and, and power availability as well. Which really gets to the idea of, where's the deployment of, let's say, public AC charging, public DC, higher powered charging. Should it be, because lower powered chargers, you might need more of them to support the fleet. But of course, that is the greatest opportunity for that flexibility potential when a vehicle stays plugged in for a longer period of time, and that and the storage capacity there can be accessed and used for different purposes. But if a public authority wants to, let's say, be very conscientious about their land use, not have lots of cars parked in their city, then they might want to push charging elsewhere, or might have fewer fast chargers or put them in garages and things like that. And the critical importance is to have these conversations, because these are new conversations for so many of the different players in this market, because they've never really needed to talk together before in this way, right? A gas station on the outside of town does not need to talk so much with the energy regulator or with the local public authority beyond some basic zoning. And now we have lots and lots of topics together to discuss. We discuss also the importance of the renewable. Okay, this document also, because again, this is a new topic for many people. The importance of using the deployment of public charging infrastructure and recharging services to achieve decarbonization objectives. Because even though, let's say, the primary consideration is still for the vehicle as transport, nonetheless, and this really, I think, engages your topic much more, there are lots of other objectives that can be achieved, and those should be considered in the planning and the deployment of public charging. Can it be done where into a place, can let's say, can the generation of renewable energy be co-located at that location? Can flexibility be permitted at that location? Can energy storage be permitted at that location? In many cases, these are not permitted, or they're not included in the same tender or the same concession language. And it is important for public authorities who, again, really might not be touching this topic at all, to understand how to write tender documents and to conceive of tenders so that they are including these things together with an eye for the future and an eye for, let's say, increasing the amount of locally or on-site produced energy that can be used to buffer that location, as opposed to just expecting it all to come from the grid. And how these can and should be planned in and thought through early on in the tender design. There is a number of case studies in the document. There's a number of case studies in the document as well, which provide examples from, I think, 9 different municipalities around Europe, and sort of look at this topic from different angles. And one of them is two of them are from the Netherlands, but one of them is from the MRAE. Maybe you're very familiar with it, which is a product of joint procurement among 3 cities in the Netherlands, where they are procuring together regionally. So they obviously get economy of scale for the infrastructure, but also, again, so that they can know where power is going and make sure that the network operator understands, let's say, where power will be needed in the coming months and years. So I know I didn't say to go forward on slides at all, but I think those are the points we wanted to make. And again, understanding that there's really very, very different conversations, I think, in countries and kind of communities across Europe, where let's say the level of market maturity is varies considerably. The penetration of electric or plug-in hybrid vehicles varies considerably, and let's say the knowledge of public authorities varies. The capacity of public authorities varies a lot, and also, let's say, their familiarity with the topic, and especially the interest and willingness of the energy regulator to lean into this topic and accept something like flexibility as a benefit as opposed to a complication or a risk factor, varies a lot. So I will stop there and look forward to hearing about the annex and how we can make this better, and take questions, of course, if you have. Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you very much. It's a well-written document, and we can recommend it very much to every public authority in Europe. If you're heading towards a tender or something like that, yeah, very good to check it in. It's not yet downloadable, right? There's a question in the chat. But is it possible for people to leave their email address, for example, when it will be downloadable. They get a
I mean,
message or
Pedro
something?
is on the. I think maybe Pedro can just share it with everybody as soon as
I'm
it's
sharing.
done. And
Yes.
we
I'm
are just
sharing
waiting
exactly,
for an
yeah.
ISBN. We're just waiting for an ISBN number. I mean, if you can believe that, but it's true.
I just shared in the chat EAFO website and the guidelines for policymakers. So where this guidelines, as well as other STF guidelines, like the permitting and grid connection report, where Aaron also contributed. There's going to be also reports on the fire safety of charging infrastructure, accessibility of charging infrastructure. It's just that the commission takes a bit of time to get this official, let's say, label, because the document is already ready. We just can't publish it yet, but I do recommend everyone to take a look at EAFO website. There's already a lot of information there, and for sure it's going to be published there.
Right. Now, thank you. Now, due to the time, it's good, Bart, that you will step in.
Yes. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Trying to share my screen. Just a little moment. Wait. Yes, apologies. No, that's not the right one. That's better, isn't it? So I think now you can see my slides.
No, we still see your website. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm starting to share again. Let me go. That's better.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Now remove this and then we are good. Okay. Yeah, so my name is Bart van der Rey. I work at the Utrecht Sustainability Institute and I'm supporting in different ways the city of Utrecht and all the parties around it in this whole smart and bidirectional adventure. I'm also active in the Scale project, and well, I have only two slides and a short announcement to make. So as Aaron explained, this brand new STF guideline is, well, almost available, and it is a good document, but especially regarding the bidirectional charging, well, it's still kind of open. And now it happens that in the Scale project, several parties are gaining experience, not only Utrecht, but also other parties with this bidirectional charging. And a document that was available already in the Netherlands is being updated to specify requirements for charging infrastructure with regards to technical requirements, but also interoperability and protocols. That's important to do this in an early phase. Not a lot is going on volume-wise, but it's being expected that it will grow. It's good to take the opportunity to stimulate that. People speak the same languages. So what we have proposed to the STF is, well, congratulations with these new guidelines. We are proposing a document, 5-6 pages probably, that could be an update when this guideline is updated again. It could be an annex or so to further specify the requirements for bidirectional chargers and maybe also smart charging. Main body will be a set of requirements for the chargers to comply to when a city procures them. If they are bidirectional, there are some things to think about. From the grid operators, there's a lot of requirements. Vehicle-to-grid chargers are generators, so there is the European requirements for generators being established. That has an impact, so you have to comply to that. Also, protocols and interoperability. Already Matthijs said that the city of Utrecht is monitoring how the chargers are actually being used. That means that there's data being sent from the chargers to the city and being aggregated there into these beautiful charts. That needs to communicate well. So the present open standards for these communication and interoperability are something to be kept in mind when cities start to procure these chargers. This is what we want to specify, what we want to propose for cities to look at these protocols that are being used already, that are open, and well, if most people do it in the same way, it will be good for the rollout in later stages. So people are actually writing this today, and we hope to well, it's a short time span still to go. So we would like to ask you, the people attending this and the previous Bidirectional City events, if you would be interested to provide feedback to these guidelines, to this annex in draft version, and especially to the cities. If you think it would be interesting for you to be included as a best practice, that's a special request as well. We could show what you're doing in the field of bidirectional and smart charging rollout. So the request is going to be, we would like to approach you, Polis has your email addresses, with a draft version of this annex for comment. And it's going to be quick by March 7, and then by March 21, we would like to close the deadline. And then by end of March, really, we would like to finalize and publish this proposed annex, so that is there, so that people can start using it. Yeah, essentially this was it. And I hope that's clear enough. I think short but powerful.
Yeah. Thanks, thanks, Bart. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll reach out to people anyway, for sure. And yeah, it would be great if you provide feedback. If you if you think you can if you have a vision on this. Yeah, we have a few minutes left, so we have a few questions in the chat. I think from Jim or Pedro. Do you want to go first?
Let's go first with the questions in the chat.
Okay.
So there's one from Jim and one from Alex. Let's maybe start Alex first. Although Alex, I don't know how to answer this.
Yeah. I know it's being addressed. So the question is there is anyone can we give an update on the status of double taxation regarding bidirectional charging in various European countries? What I have heard is that it's still it's being addressed, and it's there's nothing no big news on this, but yeah, there are the people from the Skill project are definitely addressing this at the EC. If there are other people who are having a more have another update on this, please let us know. Please put it in the chat then regarding the time. Right. Bart.
And then Jim asks directly to Bart which standards Utrecht uses to be important and essential going forwards.
Yes, sorry, can I just interject, because I was it was state of consciousness thing as Bart was speaking and putting his slides forward, but
Jim,
I asked the first question, and then we're also asking for requests. Please see the link.
Oh, you're muted. But Bart, maybe you can shortly answer the question. Which standards we use?
Yes. So in Utrecht, but also throughout the Skill project, we are I can say honestly promoting the ISO 15118-20 standard, which is the worldwide open standard for V2G interoperability from the charger to the back office. And then there's yeah, there's a focus on the OCPP and OCPI protocols in the further chain of information. So that's a really short answer, and I would think the document will contain the rest. And I will check this link you are proposing, Jim. It wasn't known to me, so I will check it later.
Yeah, great.
I just want to. I can't write in the Sten Olsen Sustain Solutions. I can't write in the chat just to make sure that I will be interested in commenting on the, or at least see the draft, so we can have a chance to comment on it. So please share it.
We will.
Yeah, we will.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it's 3:30. No questions left, right? Now, if you still have any questions or later on, feel always free to contact us via the various contact details. So thank you very much for attending this webinar, and yeah, looking forward to see you also on the fourth one. We will probably organize the fourth Bidirectional Cities event somewhere in April, May. But everyone who subscribed for this webinar will hear from us also regarding sort of wrap up from this event and the video of this webinar, and with a date for the next one. And regarding the annex, yeah, people will be updated as well. So thank you very much, and yeah, have a great further day. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Thanks.